Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this Meet the Controller session. Janice Hadlow, Controller of BBC Two. Before we begin, as you'll probably know by now, you can tweet your questions throughout the session, #SidLaw up there. You can text, they'll be anonymous, to the number there, or you can go through the iApp for the festival, which I'm sure you're all familiar with by now. We'll also have the Q&A at the end of the session as well for about 10 minutes. Janice, I'm sure many of you will know, she's been controller of the channel for 3 years now. Prior to that... Nearly, yes, November, yeah. Prior to that, obviously BBC 4, and prior to that, Channel 4, Head of Arts and Religion. Welcome, Janice Hadlow. Let's start with a simple sentence then, if you could define the channel as you see it.
Well, the first word I always use is intelligent, but I hope that once we've got that established, we go into new territories. Intelligent, creative, original, distinctive, unexpected, entertaining. That's a crucial one.
And how confident are you that the mainstream audience, and indeed people here today, also see that vision in the way that you've outlined?
I think visions, when you start doing these jobs, you think that all you have to do is wish it and it will happen. And I think what you learn is that things take quite a long time to come together and to become more than individual commissions, to join together, to become something that feels like a genuine, connected identity of a channel. I think that's a slow burn thing, sometimes slower than any of us would wish. I do feel, though, looking over the last year, that we've really got to a point when I look at a great deal of what we've done last year, I think, yes.
It's interesting, I look back at the 2009 session and some of the questions, and the requests there were for more comedy and drama. Yeah. You've certainly fulfilled on that front.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just so proud about both of those genres. I think, it's been an epic year for comedy. I think it's always a bit invidious when people in these sessions just give you a great long list of things, but actually I'm going to do that anyway. What a fantastic list we've had. You think of the range of fantastic outputs: Psychoville, Rev, episodes, The Thick of It, The Trip, Grandma's House. I could go on, Harry and Paul, I could go on, and it's been such a vintage period for really good comedy, both strength of existing titles, but what a fantastic list there of new talent doing new things in an exciting way, and also, to me, a very Two sort of way as well. So you feel when you add that together, you really get a sense of what comedy can and should look like on BBC Two.
So as you say, a lot to be proud of. You've had the channel's won 5 RTS, 5 BAFTA awards for quality programming. What's been your favourite?
I slightly sidestep the question in a way and say I think one of the things that's been most extraordinary, I mean, when I look at that, there's so many things genuinely that I do feel proud of. Factual on a roll, great new talent like Mary Beard. Who else is going to do a lovely sequence like that for you? Opportunity to take genuine risks, to do television that pushes at the boundaries. But I think, for me, the thing that's changed most in a way this year has been the addition of drama to the landscape of BBC Two. And to just see in that clip reel, 2 fantastically assured, confident dramas. I mean, 18 months ago, we were in a very different place with drama, and it's a real tribute to Ben and his team that actually now it's almost impossible. I mean, I find it quite hard to imagine now BBC Two without that amazing gift of drama in the schedule. And to me, having back as part of our output that very distinctive, very characteristic, I mean, very varied and different too. If you look at the amount of drama that we've done this year, it's ranged from, brilliant singles like United or Night Watch, fantastic 6-parters like the 2 we saw there, another brilliant piece on Sunday, David Hare's Page 8. The variety is just amazing.
So why hasn't, because The Hour in particular, obviously much heralded, why hasn't it done so well?
Well, I suppose it depends what you mean by well. I mean, I look at that and think it's averaged over 2 million around. The AIs are up. That doesn't look much like failure to me.
Well, it's dropped. I mean, you'd admit that it started off very strongly, but it has dropped consistently.
I think that's a pattern that a lot of BBC Two drama experiences, is that quite a lot of people come in to have a look initially.
But then you want them to be hooked.
Yes, you do, but you also have to accept, I think, that things bed down with the heartland of people who really love them. And I mean, I think with The Hour, for me, I'm very, very proud of it. I'm fantastically pleased to have had it on the channel. Just seeing that clip reminds me why I love it so much. You know, it's full of great characters. I think it's a fantastic setting. It really brings into the channel a bit of gloss and style and sophistication, which is a fantastic thing to have as part of our drama.
And yet, when you look at a drama, I don't know, Scott and Bailey, for example, on ITV, you could arguably say that The Hour had higher production values, and yet that had multi-millions in terms of the viewers. Why? Is it just that the mainstream aren't buying into a programme like The Hour? You might love it, the industry might support it. I know a lot of people do think it's great, and yet it hasn't seemed to have hit home where you might have really hoped.
Well, again, I'm not sure I'd accept that. I think it's a slower burn piece. I think there are a lot of characters. I mean, by its nature, I think there probably is a difference between the tone of drama on BBC Two and an ITV drama. I think, you know, you have more scope on BBC Two to get to know characters. It's a slower burn process. It takes a while for you to settle into a world and to settle into characters. And I feel that, you know, we've got that what we've seen in the first series has been not just tremendous enjoyment of the series as it is, but the opportunity to build on it as well. And that's why we're going to be commissioning a second series.
Well, I was just going to say, you said first series, so
Yep.
there will be a second series of The Hour.
There will be another, and that's a sign of our commitment to it. It's a sign of how much we value it. I also think, you know, to me, it's a sign of how I think there's a lot further to go with those characters, with that setting, and hand in hand with a production company who are absolutely committed to pushing it to the next level. And I think if you look at, for example, at what BBC One did brilliantly with Luther, you know, that had a fantastic first series. There was very little that you could point to and say, well, that was wrong. But for the second series, learning and building on what they'd learned on the first series, they took it to an even better level. So although we're very happy with what we've done in series one, it's a real opportunity to take it to even greater heights.
What changes would you make to it?
I think it's hard to say at the moment. I mean, there's not one thing I would point to and say, let's do that. I think it's more about confidence in the characters. It's more about a narrative arc, knowing where we're going next. I mean, to me, those characters have got journeys that I'd like to follow them on. I'd like to see what happens to them. I think the setting is extraordinary. There are so many things that setting offers you. It's about relationships between men and women. It's about relationships between power and challenge to power. It's a very, very, very fruitful place. You wouldn't want to lose the opportunity to do more on it.
Is the fact then that you're very happy and feel so strongly that you are putting that sense of conviction that you have that it's the right thing to do, will that play out across the board? Because all too often I hear from independents and other producers that they'll say, well, we only got a short stab at something, be it drama, be it comedy, be it factual. Is this a sign that you are more prepared to commit in the longer term to projects that you feel passionately about?
Well, having a drama slate of the kind that we've now got for the first time, I mean, I can't remember when we last had the opportunity on Two to have a returner. I mean, it's always been something ever since I arrived, and I know that Ben felt this too, that, you know, in our dreams we wanted to have the opportunity to offer the chance for things to return. With a very small slate, that's hard to do. This gives you the chance to do that, and I think having that it's a really important part of what we do to show faith in things. Now, you know, having said that, you can't do it for everything. You know, there will always be difficult decisions. You have to sometimes, if you want new shoots to grow, you can't fill up all your flower beds with existing blooms. So there are always going to be times when you're going to have to say, yes, we liked it, but we think it's run its course. But, you know, on the other hand, there are some times when you just have to say, yes, I believe in this one, we're going to take it home.
And that comes down to your personal conviction?
Mine and Ben's, and, you know, and a sense of how you feel that the audience has responded to it, how you feel that the sort of place it's found in the general scheme of debate and discussion. You know, many things go into your estimation of whether you want to give it a go or not. But yes, probably it's true that the feeling of your own heart, your conviction does, in the end, count for quite a lot.
How much do ratings personally worry you?
sorry.
How much do ratings?
I genuinely don't think that the prime directive of BBC Two is to chase ratings. That's not what we're here to do. And I think if you look at the variety of things that we do, you can see that our schedule is not made up in any way whatsoever by programmes which are solely there to deliver volume. You know, there are many things that are absolutely at the heart of what BBC Two is about that are there for reasons completely different from ratings. Why do you do something like, you know, Adam Curtis's brilliant series? You know, to me, that kind of quirky vision of the world, that kind of particular kind of authorship has always been a really important part of what Two's about. You know when you commission that, it's unlikely to get 3.6 million, but you do it because you believe in it and because you think that's the point of Two. Now, having said that, I do believe too that, sorry, too many twos, I believe as well that Two is also, it's a channel that needs, though, to have a certain level of heft. It's not a niche channel. It has to have, in the end, it's a broad channel. All those qualities that, you know, I love and I hope we manage to make the audience appreciate and enjoy about Two. In order to be meaningful, you want Two to be a biggish channel. You know, you don't want it to just...
How do you build that? Because there was an issue, audience figures were down 10% previous year, 6%, so you claw back some, but really not enough. How much of that is down to the fact that some might say, well, you're failing in that mission, and how much of that is down to the fact that you're losing your best programmes, which is something we will come on to.
Okay, we'll come on to that one.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we're up in peak at the moment. You know, I do absolutely believe that if you build it, they will come, that if you make programmes that have about them that core distinctive Two intelligence, but you have to lay onto that. The thing you have to remember, I think, with television, it's true with all television, but especially with a big terrestrial channel, watching television isn't a duty. People do it for pleasure. Now, there are many, many different ways in which that pleasure expresses itself, and some pleasure is about being challenged or surprised. It's not all about supineness. You know, there are many different ways that that enjoyment and entertainment works. But it's absolutely crucial for Two that we hold on to those things as well, which make us broad, which make us bigger. So across the board, our task is not just to have the courage to commission and to show in central parts of the schedule those programmes which are, if you like, perhaps the most classical demonstrations of intelligent television. Our task is also to find ways of being very Two-like in places where the volume is bigger, where we can bring more people to enjoy Two content in different ways.
Would that mean that we're going to see more events,
well,
Star Television, Lambing Live, Stargazing
those are
Live?
very good examples for me about, you know, if you think about 8 o'clock on Two, for me that was a conundrum, 8. You know, I spent a lot of time when I started doing this job thinking hard about 8 o'clock because you want Two to be Two at 8, but on the other hand, people are in a different frame of mind at 8 o'clock. They're perhaps looking for something which, as I say, offers them a bit more pleasure, a bit more entertainment value. But on the other hand, as I say, we want to be Two. Now, when you look at something like Stargazing, to me, I'm so proud of that show because who would think that you could bring audiences of 3 million plus to something which is really quite straightforward, which is a passionate interrogation of the night sky. You know, just something that we see around us all the time. And yet what that shows you is if you believe in it and if you find the right talent, you know, when you just see Dara and Brian together on that clip, you know, I love Dara's hat. You should wear that more often.
And those big gloves. Yeah.
But, you know, to me, that's a sort of, they're both great Two talents that usually live in a different part of the channel. One in entertainment, one in factual. And yet when you bring them together, what you get is something totally new and really, really exciting and something that the audience utterly appreciate.
We'll talk about the importance of talent in terms of, will we have then more Stargazing Live? Will we have more Lambing Live? What about other ideas that you've got for event television?
Well, I think events are really important. And, you know, when I was on 4, I was very interested in seasons because it seemed to me that one of the things you need to do in contemporary television is schedules are quite polished things now. You know, we have, you can sometimes feel that there's a sort of, they're so sophisticated that sometimes you just think, I'd like something to break the surface. You know, I'd like something that just feels as though, I don't know, it puts a hand up, gets noticed a bit. And to me, I still think there's a place for seasons on 2, and we've got a couple of seasons coming up in the autumn. But I was quite interested. I mean, I've been interested in live television for quite a long time and thinking, isn't it interesting how little live there is? It's sort of dropped off the agenda of what we do in television terms. And lambing live, I think, just showed us. I mean, that was, when you talk about taking risks, that was a risk, if you like, live in a lambing shed in the Welsh Marches, and it took an unconscionable amount of time for a lamb to get born. Right? We waited quite long for one to emerge. But, there's something about the immersion in the experience with liveness that
so
just
more
gives
live
you,
television. Then?
Well, I think there are opportunities at 8 to do more of that. Yeah, and
okay.
I think you can really see. Also, for me, what's interesting about both those programmes is I think that they're almost like a modern invention of the magazine format. Really, especially Stargazing. Nobody's done a factual magazine format and 2 for very many years, and yet when you look at Stargazing, in some ways, although it's live and it's got different tone to more classical magazine formats, it has that same rhythm to it. It's about people coming in and telling you things, not for a whole hour, but for perhaps, small segments. And I think at 8 o'clock, it's very interesting how much content the audience embraced, very positively, when it was given in that form, with that talent and in that way.
What have you seen on other channels that you'd wish to have on yours?
Did like Game of Thrones. I very much enjoyed Game of Thrones. I think that's a great, that was a great drama. We've talked often about what drama looks like on 2 when it's not in either contemporary or costume. It's out of the sort of realist box, really.
I was thinking something like BBC Three's Our War would have been
Our
a good
War was
fit.
Our War was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I was always a great fan before that of World's Strictest Parents, which streamed to me to actually do that extraordinary thing. I mean, it would my children, who would probably not watch more classical current affairs, regularly watched World's Strictest Parents, as did I. And, it would take you into the sort of interior culture of whole societies in a way that I couldn't think of any other programme that did. And it's interesting, when we set the task for current affairs, one of the things I asked Current Affairs Commissioning to think about is what would that look like for BBC Two? How could you capture some of that immediacy and immersion in a place?
Did you get any answers?
Well, the result was Toughest Place to Be,
right.
Which again, very, very proud of that series. If anyone saw it, it was a current affairs show that took ordinary people doing. The first one was a Welsh paramedic who was immersed into a Central American town. So she was taken out of Cardiff and put into a completely different environment. They were fantastic pictures of both the lives of what people do. We had a bus driver, a paramedic and a midwife. These are all things that we kind of take for granted in our lives. And yet to see how challenging that is when you're doing them in very extreme circumstances. And again, those programmes rated really well for us. And I can't think of another way that you would have got such a big audience to engage with, the daily problems of life in Central America in that way.
Well, I'll come on to the challenges in a moment, because we've just had a question about multi-platform and how that fits into your vision of 2. And I'll tie a question of mine on the back of it, if I may. How much do you think people identify? People see BBC, ITV, Channel 4. How much do they identify that something's on 1 or 2 or 3? Because generally, when I'll pitch or talk to people, they don't care, they just know the programme. And I just wonder how important you see that. Does it really matter? Could you not have had Our War on, as well as Toughest Place to Be, and other programmes that may be on BBC 4 that would all fit quite happily on BBC 2, not because it's BBC 2, just because it's something that people will pick up on because of the programme?
I don't think we can always expect the audience to have quite the granular understanding of the differences between individual programmes that we do. But I think that when you add those individual programmes up, if you see them as sort of jigsaw pieces, I think they do add up to something which approaches the character of a channel. And I think people do have quite a sophisticated understanding of that, actually. I mean, I've sat in on research sessions with ordinary viewers who are, who have a very sort of thoughtful understanding of the difference between 3 and 2, or 1 and 2, or 2 and 4. So I think there's more sophisticated thought out there than perhaps we always give the audience credit for.
And what about this multi-platform issue now then? I know I'm coming up on the train, I was watching the tweets and Richard Klein was talking about it, as was Peter Fincham, I think, from my tweets. So multi-platform then, in terms of fitting into your vision?
Well, I think, that's the way forward for all of us. I mean, linear television has actually remained, both linear and live viewing has remained a lot more robust than any of us thought it was going to be. I mean, I've been in many meetings over the years in which I've been absolutely assured that both channels and live viewing would be dead by, 1995, 1999, to, actually in the end, sometimes I think the core value of live television broadcast at the moment still feels like it's the driver that takes you to those other multi-platform offers. But, who could possibly deny, especially if you watch the behaviour of younger, people who in their 20s and below, they don't make that distinction. I mean, it's a false distinction.
So someone's then followed up with, so where have you used multiple platforms then? Or are your audience too old for it?
No, I mean, have a look at some of our comedy. Psychoville had the most extraordinary multi-platform offer, which was almost a sort of separate life, if you like, gave you all sorts of different, a different level of enjoyment that was fantastically popular. And, that was one of them. Have a look at that if it's I don't know if it's still available, but, that was the most extraordinary multi-platform offer that I've seen in a long time.
Okay. Are you a victim of your own success?
I think BBC Two controllers, as Lorraine says, one of the things that comes with the job is sometimes watching things that you love go elsewhere. But it's a bit like, it's a bit like your children leave home. You have to be prepared to wave them goodbye. And if you look at things which have gone from BBC Two to BBC One, you can't honestly say that they were wrong decisions. You look at the scale and size of The Apprentice. You look at the size of Who Do You Think You Are. You would. I mean, I would.
You can't like it though.
It's not, well, in the end, it's the audience that matter, not me. I mean, we don't do these things for my pleasure. At the end of the day, it's the interests of the audience that matter.
Well, also, that you've got a lot of pressure on you at the moment, let's face it, with cuts being called for. Your channel needs to stand out, and it needs to show that it's committed to its audience, and that audience is watching. If all the good shows go over to BBC One, where does that leave you?
Well, I'd take issue with all the good shows. I mean, I think it's actually quite targeted if you look. That actually there are some shows which, it's clear, have the capacity, have the ability to grow into something that only BBC One can allow them to do. And you would not be serving the audience in the end if you were to be dog in the manger and say, throw your toys out of the pram and say, I don't think it should go. We're not in this about making ourselves happy. It's for the audience. There are other shows, though, and I think Top Gear is a good example, where a big show feels absolutely right, rooted and in the right place on BBC Two. And, so it's not a case that all big things have to gravitate to BBC One.
When was the last time they tried to poach Top Gear?
Well, no one's attempted to poach it on my watch. I can say that with absolute honesty.
Why is that? Don't they want it?
I couldn't comment on that one. I think you'd have to ask, whoever it might be who was looking at it. But part of it, I think, is about the team themselves love being on Two, and I think they see, as I would argue, that actually, Top Gear is quite interesting, really, because it's one of those shows that when you say it's a quintessentially BBC Two show, people say, you reckon? And when you actually unpack it a bit and you say, well, it's quite edgy. It's a very strong flavour. It has it goes its own way. It's you start looking at all those things. It's incredibly creative. I mean, anyone who watched any of the last series, the level of sort of visual creativity, the things they do, is just amazing to me.
And the controversy that comes along with Jeremy Clarkson is just to be accepted.
I think it's that actually part of the appeal of the show is that it does have a transgressive quality to it. You can't deny that. People like it because of its edginess and because of the sense of anything might happen, and sometimes anything does. But I think it's really important to stress that it's a bit like a swan swimming. You know, underneath, the Top Gear team actually work really, really hard. You know, they think a great deal about where the line in the sand is. They know that they go up to it quite often, but they do think very hard about where that line is.
Do you pick up the phone and just say, Andy Willman, enough?
No,
how much do you...
that isn't my job to do that. You know, the way that the BBC works is, you know, that's about the production team who work very closely with execs in entertainment. You know, it's not the job of the channel controller to be a kind of big brother figure who's.
But would you welcome another Jeremy Clarkson then, in terms of talent?
Who wouldn't want, you know, strongly characterful talent of that kind coming through into a channel? You know, somebody who helps, who is recognisable to so much of the audience, who stands for a whole quality of entertainment. You know, all of those things are, of course, nobody would ever say, I don't want more talent like that. I think the worst thing you could do is look for a clone of Jeremy. I don't think you'd ever do that. I mean, when Lorraine talks there about The Apprentice, you know, I think the worst thing you would do is to say we want Apprentice and it's sort of mini-me Apprentice. So, I don't know, let's call it let's find something which feels as though it's almost in the same territory but not quite. Because, you know, in the end, our task is to grow new talent and new ideas and new things. And when you look at, you look at Bake Off this week, you know, Great British Bake Off, 3-point-something million this week. You know, so there are new things coming through, but they don't happen instantly. You know, you can't just say, well, this show has gone to BBC One, so let's just pluck this thing off the shelf and drop it into the schedule where, you know, you have to grow things, you have to work with production. But
you'll be looking for, obviously, Miranda's gone across, you'll be looking for new comedy, I presume. There's a question from the floor, are you looking for a new apprentice, or is there no place for formats on 2 now?
No, I mean, you look at we've got 2 fantastically successful formats. I've just mentioned Bake Off. We've got, you know, Dragon's Den going to strength to strength. And it's had an amazing run this time. You know, Hilary Devey coming in has really given it, you know, given it a new dynamic in the den. That's a format. Bake Off is a format. MasterChef The Professionals is a format. So, of course, there's room for formats on 2. I think, though, what I would say about that, I mean, also Richard Bradley, who was there talking earlier on, you know, he's responsible for a very, very strong BBC 2 format, which is Edwardian or Victorian Farm. You know, that too is a quintessential 2 format, I think. What links all those things together for me is that they all have in them quite a lot of content. You know, so the BBC 2 audience will enjoy a format, but they do like it to have quite a lot of stuff going on in it. So, you know, if you look at Bake Off, you'll get the history of the cupcake in there. Now, that may not be quite the same history as Mary Beard will tell you, but that's what I mean about 2-ness in different places. So you will get a lot of content in there. In Edwardian Farm, you know, you'll learn how to make cheese. So there's a lot of stuff in all those shows.
And how important is nurturing the talent to ensure that you get that personality coming through as well as the factual side? I mean, do you personally nurture talent?
I hope so.
Do you take Jeremy Clarkson for dinner?
Sometimes, yeah. Although, yes, that has been known.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in a way that's different because that's established talent. I think for me, one of the most important things you can do as a channel controller is to be prepared to invest in people who are new. You know, it's so you want to refresh the talent base. It's not that you want to get rid of your very much loved existing presenters, but you do want to find ways of saying, and who else can we? You know, who else has got other things to say? Who's got other ways of talking about?
And you're passionate about getting more women on.
Well, I thought when I arrived at the channel that one of the things I would like to do, particularly in specialist factual, which is the area I know best as a producer, to actually see women in positions of authority presenting those shows. And, you know, as a channel controller, one of the things you can do there is to be prepared to take risks on people. You know, you can say, okay, this person may not have a huge, great track record of having done 47 hours of television, but I look at her, I find her interesting. She seems to me someone who could work for 2. I will work with you I will support you and work with you, and we together will make that work.
Again, coming down to your personal conviction, and you will personally nurture given the time constraints?
I think it's part of a team. You know, my job is to support production team and to support commissioners in taking those decisions. To say, you know, so not to suddenly be not there when you know, somebody new doesn't deliver 3 million on their first outing. You know, my job is to say no, you know, we're getting there. This is good, and I am with you in developing the next thing. So that's quite an important thing for somebody in my role to do.
And can you do that? And I'll pick up. There's 2 questions that have come in about production, so we may as well go to those now. What about production talent? How well do you think you nurture them? And secondly, question is, Janice, 10% year-on-year but programme budget cuts are just non-sustainable, especially for a long-running series. Some producers on their knees trying to keep making shows with rising costs on less money. BBC Two, all channels need a reality check.
Well, I think we're about to approach a reality check. There's no doubt about that, you know, and I think DQF will be involved in looking at how you balance out issues of efficiency savings against issues of scope, you know. So
how much pressure do you feel under?
I think we're in a place where, you know, it's quite, Vision has to lose, we have to make savings of 20%. And I think, you know, clearly that is going to be a significant task for us to achieve. But I think precisely from what the tweeter is saying, you know, that actually you have to get to a point where you're looking at, as I say, at scope as well as just saying we can keep on salami slicing things. We're going to have to look at what we're not going to do as well as doing things more efficiently. And DQF is actually charged with looking at both of those things.
So how different will BBC Two look? We've mentioned comedy, drama. What about daytime? Because obviously we've had the rumours around you know, having rolling news on the channel during daytime. How differently will daytime look under the new?
Well, I'm going to say what probably everyone has said so far, which is we just don't know. I mean, at the moment, you know, there are a number of proposals. There has nothing been decided. We're still in the process. Any decisions that are reached then have to go to the trust for them to have a look at them. So we're not in a place at the moment where we've got concrete proposals that we can discuss. But you know, I think we have to be honest and say that, you know, 20% is not going to be done without there being impact that people will notice. That is going to be the reality.
And in that sense, the pressure's increased. You've got really I think it's been described as your siblings of the competitive siblings of BBC 3 and 4. Richard Klein today, again, I'm picking it up from the tweets, has been speaking about it. He says he wants to do more drama. He wants a channel for people that like to think. He says it's entertaining, intelligent programmes that are a BBC 4 hallmark. But that's just treading on your toes, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think that those are qualities that actually probably quite a lot of channels would accrue to themselves. But I think the difference between 2 and 4 in the end, having done both of them now, I mean, on 4, yes, there are some common qualities. That's true. We're both factual channels. We both like, you know, we both cluster around the idea of intelligence. That's true. But 2, in the end, is charged with being a much broader channel. We express our commitment to intelligence, if you like, in many more places than you do if you're running BBC 4. You know, we have to speak in a far wider range of voices to a far more diverse constituency of audience.
It'd be lovely just to be able to, if BBC 4 was closed down, that you could just have the cream of those programmes that one of those Vox Pops outlined.
Well, I'm not sure that's true, really. I mean, I think that, you know, people talk a lot about the importance of having, you know, you're asking me yourself about how important it is to have distinctiveness between channels. And, you know, I think that there's a BBC Two way of expressing intelligence and expressing all those things we've been talking about, and it's not quite the same as a BBC 4 way. So I don't think that it's a simple question of, you know, creaming off, as you say, BBC 4 shows and putting them on too. I think it's a different task. I don't think we want to remain distinctive, separate channels with distinctive, separate
But that is
identities.
one of the proposals, isn't it, is to have BBC 4 programmes repeated on BBC 2 daytime?
Well, we don't know at all. I mean, there are numbers of different proposals, many of which will be interrogated and will be considered. We already repeat some BBC 4 programmes, and I think providing that actually there are times when those work very well in the BBC 2 mix, but you want to keep, for me, the absolute core purpose is to keep BBC 2 with its own distinctive purpose, its own distinctive voice, its own distinctive identity.
And how hard will you fight if that's threatened?
I think, you know, I think we have to be realistic. I think, you know, the idea of fighting is sort of, I'm not sure that's the right attitude in a way. I think what we're trying to do is to find ways of working in the new world where we are going to be. So for me, it's less about fighting and more about trying to think, how do we preserve that essence of two? How do we, in the circumstances where we will be, how do we preserve the essence of what it is that we are and what it is that our audience love about us? That's much more important, I think, than fighting turf wars over particular stories. You know, you need to, what we need to do is work out what is at the heart of what we do and how are we going to continue with that essence of two-ness as we go forward.
Okay, so coming back to that talent then, as you say, you're championing new talent coming through. You are looking to the future and investing in people. Just tell us who you've got lined up, who are your new stars?
Well, I suppose, you know, you'd look at some of the people that we've had in Factual. I mean, we've talked a bit about them, I suppose. You know, I'm very proud of some of the new women we've got. It's great to see not just Mary Beard, but Amanda Vickery as a new historian coming through. You know, we've got Alice Roberts doing fantastic things in science. We've got some brilliant new historians, some male historians as well, people like Ben McIntyre, who's making some more stuff for us after the success of his shows that he did earlier this year. There's quite a different range of people, I feel, that we've got coming through. That's up the sort of the more specialist factual end, but, you know, how fantastic to see Lorraine Pascal do so brilliantly from a standing start. You know, she's doing another series for us in the autumn. So there's quite a diverse range of talent coming forward.
I noticed Melvin Bragg's presenting a programme about class, which is obviously an issue that's had the spotlight on it at the moment, particularly in the wake of the riots. You went to a comprehensive school, as did I. How much do you buy into the criticism of the BBC as a whole, that it's too white, too middle class and out of touch with the mainstream viewer? And how important is it for you now to not only look at the talent that you've mentioned, which from my own research come from pretty privileged backgrounds, most of them went to public school. How important is it for you to... Lorraine did, but she went on scholarship. But that's one. You know, if you really want to tap into the mainstream audience, do I
have to ask them that before they're allowed on?
But do you accept that there is a need to scout, perhaps more positively, and encourage, if you really want to make BBC Two more mainstream, you need to bring those people in? Because at the moment, people do feel pretty disenfranchised.
Well, I'd separate out the two issues there, really. I mean, I think part of the BBC's task is to reflect properly the nation, you know, as we are, to reflect who we are and to reflect that sense of what we look like, what we talk about. You know, that's a key part of what we do. But I don't think in every way. If you look at our knowledge task, which is to find ways of engaging people in ideas, I don't think that you can only do that by people who look exactly or feel exactly or speak exactly like the people in the audience. I think you need a balance between the two. So absolutely, you know, we are committed to trying to get. I mean, we're trying very hard, not just on the women front, but to get a more diverse repertory company of talent. You know. Kevin Fong, brilliant new presenter who we're very committed to. He's done a couple of brilliant Horizons. Anyone who saw him present the Challenger documentary that we did the other week, you know, there's somebody who you just think has got, you know, he's got great communication skills. He's got exactly the kind of personality and talent that you'd like to see more on too. So, you know, we want to do that, but I think that's not quite the same thing as saying, what do we feel about, is the BBC genuinely representative in every aspect of life? Do
you think it is?
I think we've probably still got more work to do. I think there's no doubt about that. I think it's about being open to seeing talent wherever it comes from. For me, in the end, I think though, I suppose what I'm trying to say in rather convoluted ways, I think that you've got to be able to deliver the goods. Now, I'm very happy to do that investment thing and to spend time working with people. But that does mean that sometimes it's slower than you'd like it to be, because you want to do what I feel with the women presenters we've got now is that, you know, I really feel quite confident that they're in it for the long haul. because they're the right people, they've got the right tone, you know, you really feel that you've got them in the right place now. We're looking to do that in other territories as well. You know, Jim Al-Khalili, somebody I worked a lot with on BBC4, you know, you add him to, you start adding together a group of people who begin to think, yes, we're beginning to put together a proper repertory company of talent there. In terms of the class thing that you asked about, I mean, I do think that actually it possibly is a part of our diversity commitment that we mustn't ever lose sight of. You know, it's just as important as those other aspects of diversity that we do think and spend a lot of time talking about. You know, making sure that we have the kind of correct class balance in the people who make the programmes as well as the people who front them. I do think that's important.
I'd like to explore that further, but we're almost running out of time, and I can't let you go without talking about Newsnight, of course. Mentioned in the Vox Pops. We've established that you're incredibly loyal to your programme, but again, your programmes, but again, given the scrutiny on programme cost, value for money, how low do ratings have to go on Newsnight before you scrap it?
We have absolutely no plans to scrap Newsnight, and Newsnight is not about, when we were talking earlier about the relationship between ratings and quality, you know, Newsnight is not there primarily to drive ratings. It's there for all sorts of other reasons, and certainly, you know, I don't consider that that is part of the channel that I look to deliver volume. I think it has other things it needs to do which are far more important than that. Is
Jeremy Paxman still the heart of Newsnight? Is it him really that's keeping it alive?
No, I don't think that at all. I think Jeremy is he's a hugely forceful presence on Newsnight, but there is so much more. But there are many other things that Newsnight do which are extraordinary and worthwhile, which are, you know, not just about Jeremy. I think sometimes they don't always get the credit they deserve for the long form journalism they do. For example, I mean, anyone who saw the work they did with the Green Howards, you know, we showed that in prime time because it was just such an amazing piece of journalism. You know, they are regularly, every single night, doing extraordinary pieces of reportage, which, you know, don't always, I think, get the credit that they deserve because they are actually inside a magazine programme, and they're not always perhaps as visible as they could be. But those sorts of things are absolutely key to what the show does. And I think also the sense of, you know, what you've seen over the last year has been some extraordinary spikes for Newsnight. You know, when you add together the Arab Spring, phone hacking, you know, all of these stories, the riots, all of these stories, you see a massive migration of audiences into the programme because they're incredibly hungry for what Newsnight delivers you, which is the opportunity for grown-up discussion, for hearing authored expertise you know, where you've got more time to unpack subjects. So, you know, that when the news story is right, there's almost like a magnet effect that will bring very substantial audiences into the programme.
So that's staying. You're looking at new comedy. We've heard about the drama, the recommissioning of the hour. For anyone who's in here or even outside who wants to pitch to you, what are you looking for that you haven't as yet fulfilled?
Well, I think you know, the two areas in the channel where we're always hungry for are we're in the end with all our much loved comedy and drama. The day-to-day business of the channel is still factual. You know, we're overwhelmingly still a factual channel. And our desire is to keep up that supply of really stimulating quality content-rich factual. You know, 9 o'clock, always hungry there. You know, I was talking earlier on about the importance of BBC Two doing things at 9 o'clock which are not all about ratings. We also do, though, sometimes need things which are lovely, too distinctive, and give us a healthy audience as well. So we're always looking for those sorts of sweet spot kind of projects which can do brilliantly for us. Sunday nights, I talked earlier on about toughest place to be. You know, Sunday nights, very, very fruitful place for us to do factual shows. Endlessly interested in the sort of things that will work for us on Sunday nights.
And any more formats, just to come back to that question?
I think I think it's interesting. When is it's a question of whether you're looking, I think long form things is not quite the same as formats, if you see what I mean. So I think probably we are no longer in a world where just because something is a format, it's instantly attractive. I think probably, I mean, I feel as though I've been a producer long enough to see the rise and fall of lots of these moments. You know, I was involved in immersive history when I was at Channel 4. We all did an awful lot of it, and after a while, there was a point when you couldn't give an immersive history idea away because we just flooded the market too much. So they have a sort of natural growth cycle, some of these things. I wonder with formats whether, you know, where we are at the moment is a really good format will succeed, but a format just because it's a format is no longer in itself an attractive enough proposition to work. And that's why, you know, I'm quite interested in sort of different ways of long form. Very interesting to see the return of observational docs, for example. You know, thinking about the kind of event television that we talked about. You know, very interested in other ideas for what I was saying earlier on about things that just detonate the schedule a bit.
Any favourite ways, as a question from the floor, any favourite ways to be pitched to or disastrous examples of how not to?
I was once pitched to when I was standing naked in the shower in Highbury Baths by a very keen female indie, I should add. That wasn't my favourite experience somehow. I did feel a bit exposed at that
I guess
point.
That one didn't get
That wasn't great.
Well,
you know, the best way to pitch, honestly, is to go to the right commissioner, really. Because they have a kind of overview and understanding of, you know, what's going on everywhere, not just on BBC Two. They are really the absolute definite preferred port of call. But I mean, I do like, as people will know who've been involved with me, I love unpacking, and for me the best part of the job is the opportunity to talk about an idea and see whether it works properly, and to sit down. So, you know, with the commissioner, when we've got to a point where we think this might be a goer, you know, I'm always happy to be involved at that point. That's my favourite bit of the job, is just sitting there and doing that kind of thing.
I've got five quick fire questions, but I'm going to open it to the floor just to get some questions in before we finish. So any questions from the floor? Lady and the lady there. There's two. And there's someone at the back as well, just so we can be clear, the microphone here and the back.
Hi, I'm Anna Demores from 2020. Are you interested in factual-based drama like Garrow's Law and Casualty 1906 to add to your slate?
Well, we've just done a very successful factual drama, The Man Who Crossed Hitler, which was, you know, brilliant for us. I've always had a great love of factual-based drama, and one of the things I'm quite keen to do is to preserve the single drama, make sure that we've still got room for factually based single dramas. I mean, BBC Two has a brilliant heritage in that. Everything from, you know, think of the Robert Maxwell drama to The Secretary Who Stole a Million. You know, there's a good tradition there, and to me, that's something that we absolutely want to hold on to. Yeah.
Tara Conlan from The Guardian. Can I just ask you a question that I asked Richard Klein earlier, Janice, about whether or not you think BBC 4, having run both of them, BBC 4 could be annexed in some way to BBC 2, a la Radio 2 and 6 Music. And also, if daytime were to be scrapped from your channel, would your channel miss it? Would you miss having your own original daytime content, or can you do without it?
Okay, annexation, I don't think is really the right answer. I think these are distinct channels with distinct histories and distinct purposes. And I come back to what I was saying about, you know, the essence of a channel, really. So I think to me, that feels like an unlikely scenario. I have to caveat that by saying, you know, we are where we are. There are many proposals which are being considered. But to me, the separateness of the channels is part of their purpose. You know, they contribute different things to the portfolio of the BBC, and annexation seems to me not a good thought. In terms of daytime, I would say that, you know, we don't know where we'll be with daytime. We don't know which proposals will in the end go through. For me, the key thing to think about with daytime is whatever happens is preserving something that feels very, very Two in its identity. You know, whatever we do, You want something in that daytime slot that feels as though there's something profoundly BBC Two about the offer to the audience, because I think that's what's made it very successful so far. So trying to preserve that or protect it or think about what might take its place, that's crucial for me.
Peter York. I'm mad keen for inclusiveness and outreach to growing minorities, which is why I'm going to ask, why aren't there more programmes for rich people and about rich people? Why, when there are programmes about rich people, are they always silly programmes like Made in Chelsea? Why can't they be proper programmes for rich people?
I think BBC Four have just done a season called Luxury, I think, which is probably, if it's not about the rich, it was about some of the things that the rich own.
What are you thinking of in particular? What would you like to see?
I would like to see more, for instance, about the people who feature in the Sunday Times Rich List and the people who want to be those people, and on down, because they exist in very considerable numbers.
Well, we've done, I mean, I don't know if you've seen any of the profiles that the Money Programme team do, which are absolutely extraordinary. I mean, brilliant profile of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Donald Trump.
We did Warren Buffett. You know, so finding ways of finding ways of talking about who those people are in a way that isn't silly, you know, that actually looks at what it is like to have that degree of, that degree of wealth. I think that's something that we have done in different ways.
Any other questions? Just while you're thinking, just a few quick fire ones then. What are the best things about your job?
I think that's what I was just saying. For me, the thing I still love more than anything is sitting in a room with people talking about a great idea. You know, what can we do to make it work? What can we do to make it better? I love that sort of intellectual collaboration in television. For me, that's the bit I just love best of all. Presenter, production, commissioner, all of us just saying, but it could be this or it could be that, or but isn't what we really want to do this? You know, that sense of opportunity and purpose, I think that's still for me one of the great pleasures of the job.
In a sentence, hardest part of the job?
This. Probably.
Where are you prepared to experiment? You've touched upon it a little bit, but really experiment, really push up.
I think when we say really experiment, I don't know. You know, I think we do pretty damn well at 9 o'clock. Actually, I mean, if you look at some of the things that we've done at 9, we've been pretty bold. I think. Talk about Adam Curtis, 9 o'clock on a Monday on BBC Two. Is it's a really quite shows a lot of confidence in something which is not orthodox filmmaking. You know, it just feels different and has a different tone to it. But I think experimentation can take so many different forms. I mean, you could say doing Song of Lunch, which we did as a Friday 9 o'clock drama entirely in poetry. That's quite brave. I mean, it was also a very, very lovely piece, but bravery takes so many different forms. It's not always the kind of, it doesn't always take the form that perhaps is most predictable that you think it's going to do.
What have you learned about your time at the helm, and what, if anything, would you do differently?
What have I learned? I've learned, as I said at the very beginning, that things take time and that they take more time on a bigger channel. So when I went to BBC Four, it really was like having your own train set, and you could make a difference really quite quickly. And on Two, because of the much bigger landscape of programmes that you're dealing with, it takes longer. It takes longer to nurture things. It takes longer to bring things on, and patience and resilience is as much a virtue as having lots of ideas and wanting them all now, I think. Yeah.
And any one thing that would surprise us to learn about you? I don't know personally. I know you're still writing the book, and I just learned that I've got this image now of you in the shower being pitched to. But apart from that, is there any one thing that we should know about? Where did your love of history come from?
Honestly, I think it was from watching The Six Wives of Henry VIII and Elizabeth R. I was a complete obsessive fan of both costume drama and historical fiction. So I was reading Philippa Gregory. I was reading all sort. I've always been a great consumer of those sorts of things. So my love of history came really as much from those sorts of pleasures as much as sort of the more respectable scholarly dimension, I think.
And one final thing to leave, really, thought-wise, in terms of how you see BBC Two in the future, in the near future and beyond.
Well, I know these aren't the easiest times. There's no doubt about that. But I feel very proud of what, and I suppose the thing I'd just like to close on is, in the end, my job is to be, I'm a kind of enabler, really. I can help create a framework, but it's the people who actually make the programmes that make the real difference. And the thing that I feel so proud of, in a way, is the degree, when you look at the confidence of our drama, when you look at the sort of assurance and excitement of a lot of our factual, when you look at our comedy, all of that comes from the absolute degree to which people in production have risen to a challenge and haven't been afraid to do new things and have, really, really thrown themselves into it. And I think that as long as we've got an element of that, as long as in the difficult times we can somehow keep that sense of, why we're here and what we do, and, the fact that in the end it is that creative impulse that matters, we won't be in too bad a place, I hope.
Okay, thank you very much for enduring that, ladies and gentlemen. Janice Hadlow.